There are some in the United States who say the Republicans need to move past the recent U.S. presidential election or they may lose the country. To chat about this in more detail is U.S. political reporter Lisa Daftari joining me once again from Los Angeles. Happy New Year, Lisa.
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Now, Lisa, political analysts say many in the United States should forget about the November election and instead focus on Georgia's Senate runoffs later this month.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think Republicans across the board, for the most part, believe that there was cheating in the presidential election in November. Some believe that we should accept the Biden win and move on because Georgia and the Senate race there is obviously very, very important. And others believe that no, we need to stand our ground and prove that there was cheating. So this is going to be a very important week for Republicans across the board, many traveling to Washington, D.C. to protest along with the president, rather. But to the first point, it's to say that, well, the focus on the presidential election makes us lose focus on Georgia, and that because we are so divided as a country, because even the Republicans are even further divided and splintered right now, that they won't be able to focus on a future, to move on, and to strengthen themselves and their party base in the next 4 years.
As the 117th Congress convened over the weekend, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was reelected. Now, she needed 214 votes, and Lisa, she actually got 216.
Yeah, it was a close one, Nancy, wasn't it? Look, she has lost some popularity among the new, young, progressive Democrats in Congress. There was some rumors a few weeks ago that the likes of Ilhan Omar and AOC wanted people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to exit the party. They don't believe that the establishment, older Democrats represent who they are, who's far more socialist, far more left, and far more progressive. So it's surprising that she did win, and in some ways not surprising because she's been such an establishment and such a part of the Democrat Party. But this is her last time, as everybody knows. So it's a nice farewell for her.
Yeah, very close, like you mentioned. Lisa, U.S. Marines are preparing for a rising challenge from China's military, and they're doing so with new technology and island training. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think the world has woken up to the threat that the Chinese government presents in all fronts, whether it's militarily here in the Navy that we're talking about in this story, cyber capabilities, manufacturing capabilities, stealing intelligence, tech, apps. 5G across the board, there is this wake up call to see what China is up to. And because China has an interest in expanding itself, particularly in the China Sea and in the surrounding areas, the United States has received this kind of alert that they need to also start practicing, having drills, really beefing up their capabilities on all fronts.
A 21-year-old man who hid from police in an East Texas church was charged with first-degree murder in a shooting that left the pastor dead and two other people injured on Sunday.
Yeah, well, this is a really sad story. I thought we were done with hearing about these church shootings. And for a while we had, maybe it was because people weren't going to church and quarantining. But yet again, we have another story where a church was targeted and innocent people who were praying on a Sunday. Um, and those individuals, how they are, of the most pious, those who came out in the aftermath of the quarantine, probably so excited to get back to church, back to praying with the community, and this should happen. It's a horrible story.
Now, turning to business news, Bitcoin traded near a Sunday record of $34,800 following an 800% surge. Why has Bitcoin become so popular?
Right? It's absolutely absurd. I have asked so many people to explain this to me time and again because I just cannot wrap my mind around this fictitious thing that is so now it is in such high demand and it doesn't even exist. It's not a coin. It's not a precious metal. It's not cash. Um, Bitcoin. Years ago, Bitcoin came under my radar as a form of currency for terrorists in ISIS to use because it was non-traceable. And they were using, pay me, half a Bitcoin if you want this artifact from a church in Syria. And they were actually doing business this way. Fast forward to it becoming such a fad about a year or two ago, and then it kind of died down. People just sold off their shares. They thought they could just buy pizza with it. Meanwhile, they're probably paying millions of dollars for that pizza. And now, lo and behold, we have the support of banks and some very proper financial infrastructures. And because of that, it's giving legitimacy and backing to the Bitcoin, which has gone up tremendously. If you have one, hold on to it tight, because it looks like it's just heading upward from here
Yeah,
again.
800% increase is just crazy right now. Lisa, the Jerusalem Post is reporting that Iran may avenge Soleimani's killing after the Biden inauguration. Mossad chiefs say the Islamic Republic would find a moment to avenge the killing of the chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, which took place 1 year ago.
Yes, exactly 1 year ago, we're up to the 1 year anniversary of the killing of the shadowy commander Qasem Soleimani. And if you remember, he was the mastermind that planned out all the killings and all the horrific terrorist activity in Syria and Iraq for the Iranian regime. And for over a year now, the Iranian government has threatened to avenge his murder, has not been able to or has not done it yet. But on the anniversary of his killing over the weekend, the Iran parliament voted on an official mandate to destroy the state of Israel. Now, we've heard this threat before. We want to wipe Israel off the map. We want to push them into the ocean. But this is the first time, this is quite historic, where they have come out with actual official legislature that says that it is an obligation now to destroy the state of Israel. This was an exclusive on my website from the Foreign Desk, and you can read more about the story there. But this really ups the ante with where Iran stands with regards to enriching uranium. They're not embarrassed. They are not afraid of sharing this information whatsoever. Their stance is basically, well, the U.S. pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, so we will do whatever we want, and they're proving the fact.
Yeah, it's not the first time that Israel has been threatened, right? Now, in a related story, there are reports that Iran is stepping up its nuclear plans by as much as 20% in uranium enrichment as tensions rise on the anniversary, like we said, of Soleimani's killing.
Yes, and the foreign minister Zarif actually tweeted saying, "Look, we are upping the enrichment of our uranium, and we've notified the UN and the IAEA. They basically are proud. They're chest thumping in a public forum, basically saying the U.S. pulled out. This is really again, whatever the Iranian regime does, you have to look at the timing. This has coincided to be a warning to the Biden administration to say, look, if you want us to play nicely, you have to get right back into that deal. That deal was very good for them. The United States was looking the other way. They were doing everything they wanted. And what was there? A meaningless piece of paper that basically symbolized that the U.S. was giving the Iranian regime permission to do whatever they wanted. Now, the Trump pressure campaign has actually worked in marginalizing the Iranian regime, in really strangling them financially, in not allowing them to go forward with their nuclear ambitions in certain ways. But now that they know that this is kind of like a lame duck period, this is where they're taking the opportunity to tell the Biden administration, either you sign back on or this is the way we're going to go.
You know, we're still in the midst of a global pandemic, but that didn't stop partiers in France on New Year's Eve from having a big bash. Lisa, the illegal rave drew around 2,500 people, and were they all wearing masks?
No, obviously not. This is really tempting fate. I know a lot of people have this, whether they're anti-maskers or they have this belief that we've had enough. We call it quarantine fatigue here in southern Los Angeles because we really are fatigued. But, gathering with your closest 2,000 some friends is really not the smartest thing to do. So obviously, French authorities were cracking down on these types of gatherings, particularly this large one that you're referring to, which was a rave of some sort. Tempting fate.
Lisa, a story which has made world headlines is the new variant of the novel coronavirus, which was discovered in the United Kingdom. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning for tougher measures as cases are soaring with this new variant.
Yes, and I don't know if you've had it in Canada yet, I hope not, but here in the United States, we've already detected the case in Colorado and here in Southern California near San Diego. This is going to spread very quickly as well, and especially interesting in terms of timing because people are getting vaccinated and some researchers are saying that this new variant, the vaccine will fight this new variant, and others aren't sure yet. There isn't enough research out there on the new strain that we would know whether or not the vaccine can resist. This is awful. It's been almost a year that the entire world is dealing with this pandemic. We think we have, some sort of control on it with the vaccine coming out, and now this. So Boris Johnson's extremely frustrated with people not be obeying the quarantines because if this new variant starts spreading, as you know, there are travel bans in many places in effect to not allow people from the UK to travel. But as I said, it's already been detected here in the United States and elsewhere. I know it's in South Korea and some other countries as well. It's been detected.
Let's talk about how the pandemic and the local restrictions are really impacting a lot of businesses across North America. A lot of small business owners, pizza stores, pizza shops, they're all going under. How about in Southern California? What are you seeing there?
Oh, it is horrific here. Hal, if you drive through the main parts of town here, which are usually just hustle bustle, particularly around the holidays, it's like a war zone. The boarding that went up right before the election because people thought there was going to be more looting and more violence, those boards haven't come down. People have not opened their businesses. I read on Yelp, which is the website that rates restaurants and such, that about 61 or 62% of restaurants that have closed during this time will not reopen. They will not be able to reopen. It's going to be a while before we see any sort of normalcy with regards to mom and pop shops, small businesses, restaurants, etc. Particularly here in Southern California, I know that that's going to be a long time coming. Very unfortunate, very, very sad.
You know, that really breaks my heart. I remember a number of years ago when I was in New York City in Manhattan, in Soho District, and I went to this little ma and pa shop. It was a wonderful Indian restaurant, had the best naan bread butter chicken I've ever had in my life. You just went downstairs and,
Yes,
you know,
I think I know what you're talking about, right near NYU.
yeah, right? So it's just some of the best restaurants around are some of the smaller restaurants that are out there. Now, here's an interesting story. Speaking of New York, a landlord in New York City is facing his own eviction as deadbeat tenants refuse to pay rent. Explain what happened there.
This is such a mind-boggling story. It's sad. It's just sad, but it's reality. Basically, this is a building in Harlem. The owner is an 80-something-year-old man who relied on the small amount of rent that the tenants were paying in order for he himself to pay his homeowners, which is the monthly fee that they pay in these types of buildings in New York City. Now, the tenants have not paid their rent. They're not forced to pay their rent. And therefore, this man cannot afford to pay his homeowners. Now, those people living in the building will get government assistance in order to live and pay for their groceries, etc. But this man has no other recourse. He has no other source of income. So it just shows you the reality of, again, the middle upper class getting really squeezed here. I know that everyone's suffering, and I'm not trying to minimize the lower socioeconomic brackets, but in this particular case, you look at the fact that they have recourse and this man does not. And it's a very, very upsetting story. And this is just one story that was written up. But there are many, many such examples that are not written up and people who are forgotten about. These are the same people, like the mom and pop shops, like the small business owners, the family run businesses, the middle class people who have no recourse, and their business, their way of doing business was their way of life and their livelihoods, and that is no longer. So my heart goes out to him and his family, and I hope that there's something that can be done to save him.
Yeah, wherever you're watching at home, make sure you get out and please support, if you can, small business owners. They're the backbone of the North American economy. One of our regular contributors, U.S. journalist Lisa Daftari, thanks again for your time.
My pleasure.